Hi everybody, I am Rafael Mora. I am from Lima, Peru. I study philosophy and work as a professor at the Federico Villarreal National University. I was the winner of the Francisco Miró Quesada Award. This award is named in honor of the Peruvian intellectual who is best known for introducing logic as subject in Peru. The title of my work, of my paper, was a pragmatic dissolution of Carry's paradox. In that paper, I deal with Carry's paradox. Specifically, I use non-formal logic tools to interpret it as a statement that seeks to emphasize the truth of certain information. The subject is interesting because it allows establishing bridges of communication between formal logic and non-formal logic. In principle, Carry's paradox arises when someone asserts that if what he is saying is true, then it will be so. The problem with this sentence is that it raises the possibility that anything can be proved. I tried to deal with the paradox with three types of logic: the paracomplete logic, the paraconsistent logic, and the relevant logic. But none were effective. At that time, I noticed an area that I had not explored: non-formal logic and especially pragmatics. From that framework, and based on the work of Grice about logic and conversation, I state the idea that Carry's paradox is just a phrase that can be used to emphasize certain information. I recommended these books, to read this book, The Great Book of Paradox, of Michael Clark, and this article of Haskell Curry, The Inconsistency of Certain Formal Logic, and this another article of Paul Grice, Logic and Conversation, a pragmatic dissolution of Carry's paradox. The Carry's paradox is related with another paradoxes like Liar's paradox or Russell's paradox. But the difference is that Carry's paradox not contain negations and not contain contradiction. This is a very interesting properties of this paradox. And then to resolve Carry's paradox is more difficult than resolve the Liar's paradox and Russell's paradox. An expression of Curry is a conditional. In that conditional, his antecedent, the antecedent refers to all conditional and attributes true, predicates true about all conditional. And the consequent contains information. For example, this is an expression that generate the Carriage paradox. If this conditional is true, then this year will be the end of the war. For example, if you apply logical techniques, formal logical techniques, you can prove that this year will be the end of the war. You can prove that or anything information includes contradiction information or false information. This is the problematic situation. Because if you can prove anything by using a conditional structure, and a special conditional structure, this is a not good. This is a not good situation, because logic would be trivial, and this is a bad idea. Okay, for this reason, it's important to resolve the Carriage paradox. But this paradox is very difficult. This paradox is similar to liar's paradox because this paradox, the Carriage paradox, refers to itself and predicates to itself truth. The difference is that liar's paradox refers to itself and predicates or of itself false. This is the difference. This paradox, Carriage paradox, have a mathematical version, or a version with sets, a version that use sets like Russell paradox. This is the another similarity. Well, I repeat, it's very amazing that this paradox can prove all information, but at the same time not contain negation and not contain contradiction. This is very peculiarity, and for me this is a very important challenge. I try to resolve this paradox by using non-classical logic. First, I use the para-complete logic designed by Hartree-Field. The idea is that Carriage paradox is not true and is not false. Carriage paradox have a third truth value, indefinite, uncertain, insecure, or unknown. This is the proposal of Hartree-Field. The another proposal is the para-consistent logic of Graham-Priest. Graham-Priest construct a new definition of conditional by using non-normal words. And the concept of non-normal words is a very difficult concept, but with this strategy, Graham Priest stopped the Carri's paradox. It's a very attractive proposal, but it's more complicated, this idea. The bad idea, the bad notice, the bad situation is that para complete logic and para consistent logic not resolve the Carri's paradox definitely. That to say, not all para consistent logic and not all para complete logic resolves this paradox. For me was unfortunately situation, unfortunately information. Well, then I try to resolve this paradox by using the relevance logic of Noel Belknap and Alan Ross Anderson. I think that Carri's paradox was an irrelevant inference, but using the ideas of these thinkers, of these researchers, is easy to note that Carri's paradox is not irrelevant inference. It's not irrelevant. It's relevant according to the criteria of the relevant logic. It's an relevance inference. Why? Because it's possible to, using the premise or the premises, using the premises to derivate, to deduce the conclusion. This is possible. This is a first criteria of relevant, and also the premises and conclusion share a variable, one variable, share. This is the second condition of relevance. For me, that was a bad sign, okay? I think this paradox by months, and one day I want to change my framework. I remember that there are another framework, the non-logical framework, and specifically the pragmatics. And for me, was very important. Use these tools and applicate in this case. The idea of use non-formal logic was very important to conclude my thesis, because I understand that the logic is not only formal. The logic is possible to divide the logic into parts. formal and non-formal. But for me, the logic is one. This classification of logic is only a didactical classification, but is not real classification. This is my my proposal. I research about the pragmatic perspective. I know the works of Grice and applicate his tools to my problem. In a non-formal version, Carry's paradox, Carry's paradox is the next phrase. If I am right, then, for example, the book is on the table. This is the non-formal version of Carry's paradox. Okay? That the idea is to discover what is the mean. And if you read the work about logic and conversation of Grice, you can use, for example, your maxims, in special the maxim of quantity, for example. It's possible also to use another tool, the conversational implicature. And in this case, I use this tool to the Carry's paradox. And I think when people says, if I am right, then the book is on the table, what does mean? What does mean of this phrase in a human situation? And I discovered that the real mean, the true mean of the true interpretation of this paradox is a way to emphasize information. When I say, if I am right, then this year was or will be the end of the world, the unique information that I say is this year will be the end of the world. This is the unique information. But I use the conditional structure of Carry's paradox. Why? For emphasize information in consequent. For emphasize the information contains in consequent of this condition. This is my contribution to this discussion. Okay? In few words, in another words, the conditional of Carry reduced to only a consequent. In other words, the grammatical form in Carry's paradox is not the same that the logical form. This is the idea. But this situation is not unique. You can remember another expressions. If, for example, I think, therefore I am, Descartes' expression. This phrase is not conditional. is not conditional. 2. If 2 equals 9, then I am the genie of the lamp. This phrase, the real meaning of this phrase is that it's not true that 2 equals 9. This is the interpretation. The correct interpretation is not conditional. And the same situation occurs with Carry's paradox. This expression, Carry's paradox, simply implies conversationally that the book is on the table. So, the paradox arises only from a formal approach. The benefit of this view is that it is coherent with the idea that at bottom, Carry's paradox is much like the Banach-Tarski paradox. That is a counterintuitive but substantiated result. You do not have to solve something that is not a problem at all. Logic may be designed to avoid Carry's paradox, but if the maneuver designed to avoid this paradox is more complex than the paradox itself, the strategy solves the supposed problem but commit us to another one, and excessively and unnecessarily technical logic, even if interesting in academic terms. From the pragmatic approach, this issue is dissolved. That is, it ceases to be a problem by paradox. Okay? Thank you for your attention.